In 18th century Williamsburg, signs were more than mere decoration. They were a vital communication tool, sometimes depicting vivid images and text to convey the establishment's name, services, and identity. These visual markers, often forged and painted on wood or iron, guided travelers, distinguished craftsmen, and legitimized businesses. They were crucial for establishing a commercial presence.
If you're looking for somewhere to dine, you can get a real taste of the 18th century here.
They were the silent storytellers of commerce and community. Much more than advertisements, signs were the essential, unmistakable language that allowed life, business, and travel to function, transforming a busy street into an easy-to-find, helpful guide for everyone looking for goods and services.
Hey everyone, Scott and Sarah here. We are back in Colonial Williamsburg on a beautiful day, and we have a pretty grand endeavor we're going to take on, and we wanted to invite you guys to come along with us. In no specific order, we're going to go up and down the Duke of Gloucester Street and locate every sign that hangs outside of shops and taverns and inns, and we're going to show you what they look like today versus what they look like years ago in some cases. And we're just going to explore them and talk about them a little bit. We're approaching Duke of Gloucester right now. Let's go see what we can discover.
Built between 1739 and 1740 as a part of a business partnership that included merchant William Prentis, the Prentis store is the oldest surviving commercial building in Williamsburg. Interestingly, historical records seem to show that the store didn't advertise its imported goods in the Virginia Gazette, unlike many other merchants in the city then. As a result, the types of merchandise sold here are known mainly through old invoices, ledgers, and inventories of similar shops from the period. But today, its hanging signboard outside may hint at some of the goods once offered here.
And this is an interesting sign here at the William Prentis shop. It looks like a pretty embellished trunk. And what is that, a Masonic compass?
That's what it looks like, and also like a vessel for carrying liquid, like a canteen kind of.
Yeah. And it's got the common abbreviated colonial first name for William and his last name, Prentis. And then it's got the year, I guess, of its establishment, which is 1739.
Over the years, the store's sign has undergone changes, reflecting the different periods of its long history.
And I do know that this sign has changed pretty considerably over the years. The older one was much more simple, and it just had, I believe, the last name and some sort of image. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I do think here I like the newer one better. I think it fits well outside the Prentis shop.
It's very clear what kinds of things you could find here.
Yeah. And standing here, you can definitely tell that sign holds a lot of history. It kind of matches the business type it was, as well as the owner, William Prentis himself.
Yeah, and I'm sure he was well known in Williamsburg.
Oh, no doubt.
If visiting Colonial Williamsburg in the 21st century, the restored William Prentis store offers a wide array of 18th century handcrafted items using traditional techniques. The Unicorn's Horn, operated by Dr. James Carter, was one of the apothecary shops found in 18th century Colonial Williamsburg. It provided medicines, remedies, and other health-related goods to local residents and travelers, playing an important role in daily health of the people back then. The dominant unicorn horn jutting out from the side of the brick house, symbolizing the mythical healing powers attributed to a unicorn's horn, was a bold and unusual sign that would have made the shop easily recognizable.
So the unicorn horn was a sign for medicine?
Apparently it was, because this was the apothecary of Dr. James Carter. I'm sure when people saw the unicorn horn, that's indeed what it meant as a house of medicine. They were probably glad to see it if they were under the weather.
Not entirely sure if the horn has seen some touch-ups over the years for clarity and durability's sake, but it still clearly retains its unique character and historical appeal.
So when you're thinking about Dr. Carter, it is kind of amazing that after all these centuries, that symbol, that unicorn horn, which stood for medicine in the 18th century, still holds quite a bit of significance today. Yes, I'm not exactly sure if there was any record of it actually being a unicorn horn when Dr. Carter worked out of the building, but to me, it's probably one of my favorite sights to see when I'm walking down Duke of Gloucester. It's just really cool to see a unicorn horn protruding out of the side of this massive brick building.
A 1782 census taken in Williamsburg showed Hartwell Perry as a head of household of a 5-member family. After the Revolution, he purchased this home on Duke of Gloucester Street and used it as a tavern until his death in 1800. Expecting to see it during our sign tour, we were surprised to find that the Hartwell Perry Tavern's famous sign was temporarily removed for restoration. Still, its interesting design is easy to imagine based on how it appeared during previous visits. A visual puzzle featuring a deer, a well, and a cluster of pears that cleverly and covertly come together to spell out the owner's name, Hartwell Perry. Imagery like this would have kept the tavern top of mind and likely sparked conversation and probably a few small jokes among its 18th century visitors. Right next door, hanging above the doorway of the Taliaferro coal house, was a sign we nearly overlooked. Its artwork representing the historic joinery trade in Williamsburg. Once operated by 18th century coachmaker Charles Taliaferro, the property was later purchased by Jesse Cole, who turned it into a general store and later a post office. Today, the shop's simple sign, featuring a saw and joiner's plane, marks the place where artisans craft architectural woodwork for buildings across Williamsburg, including doors, fireplace mantels, ornamental moldings, window sashes, and more. Charlton's Coffee House, operated by Richard Charlton in the mid-1700s, was a popular establishment near the Capitol in Williamsburg. Inside, Charlton served a variety of beverages and foods. Patrons could enjoy coffee, tea, and hot chocolate, popular drinks of the time, as well as a selection of wine, beer, and spirits.
What is that, like a 18th century coffee pot?
Kind of looks like a tea kettle or teapot.
Because they're always like long and narrow like that, it seems like, back in the olden days. The long spout.
Yeah, and it would have had to have conducted heat well, like, because it probably would have heated it over fire or something.
While we don't have a detailed description of the original coffee shop's hanging sign, it would have likely featured a clear visual clue to help people recognize the coffee house amidst the bustling street of shops and taverns.
And I'm sure that's probably not exactly what the original looked like, but it would have definitely been something similar to let people know that it was a coffee shop, you think?
Yeah, it's very, like, inviting sign, makes you want sipping chocolate or coffee or tea, I guess.
Something to think about, but back then a lot of people couldn't even read. So the picture on the sign would be the only way they knew what the establishment was. Yeah. I think today everybody can read what the sign says. Back then, all they had to go by was the picture for the people who couldn't read.
Though today's sign, and likely the one that hung here centuries ago, probably bore artwork signaling the business of a coffee house, the menu extended well beyond coffee. It included an array of foods such as fish, meats, game, and even peacock, according to some accounts, making Charlton's Coffee House an all-encompassing stop, especially during open sessions at the Capitol next door.
Yeah, so this is the signage for, it's either pronounced in American English, Dubois, or in French pronunciation, Dubois. So it's M. Dubois Grocer. And it looks like it's incorporating the razorback pig, which would have been a clear sign for meat and provisions back in the 18th century. Now, I'm not exactly sure if that's what they really had, but here in the 21st century, that's how it's being interpreted. So whether it's Dubois or Dubois is, I guess, up to opinion, but we'll just go with the French version in Dubois. Yeah, and the sign hasn't changed much over the years. I've seen older pictures. I'm not exactly sure how far it dated back, but it always appears to look pretty much exactly the way we see it right now. So not much change on the sign over the years.
Located on the north side of Duke of Gloucester Street, M. Dubois Grocer, also known as Hunter's Store, was a bustling spot in 18th century Williamsburg. Shoppers could find a variety of goods here, including imported coffee, sugar, Scotch snuff, and other essentials for daily life in the capital city. Today, the restored hanging sign reflects what might have been the store's early connection with provisions and meats sold here at the time.
But it still definitely merges into the look of colonial Williamsburg, like to a T.
Its design has been carefully preserved since the early Restoration years, keeping the colonial charm alive and letting visitors imagine Williamsburg's past.
So this would have been like an 18th century grocery store for people in town or people traveling through to get what they needed?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And if you think about it, in the 18th century, people all throughout Williamsburg would come right here through that door for all their daily necessities they needed. So a pretty neat thought.
Today, visitors can enjoy a sweet treat here, inspired by Thomas Jefferson's handwritten ice cream recipe, which he aimed to enjoy year-round. While exploring the historic signs along the Duke of Gloucester Street, the old silversmith shop sign that once hung in front of the James Geddy house came to mind. James Geddy Jr. was a prominent colonial silversmith, known for his skill in silverwork and jewelry, and some of his original pieces are still kept inside. Although visitors today won't see the vintage sign outside the shop, it can still be glimpsed in old photographs and television specials. It appears in the 1978 Perry Como Christmas special, when legendary actor John Wayne visited the shop and wanted no part in antique silverwork that had been handed down among royalty.
But besides my own wares, I do have this beautiful antique I'd like you to see.
Oh, it's graceful of a line.
And a very romantic history. Louis XVI gave it to his queen, and she, in turn, gave it to Count de Fersen, and he gave it to the Duchess of Versailles.
Well, if none of those folks wanted it, you're not going to pawn it off on me.
Opened in 1745 by James Shields, Shields Tavern was one of several licensed taverns in Williamsburg and quickly became a favored gathering spot for locals of modest means. Today, it stands as a window into colonial life, letting visitors imagine the buzz and chatter of 18th century Williamsburg. The tavern sign features a yellow background, adorned with several illustrations, prominently displaying the year 1745 and the tavern's name.
If you're looking for somewhere to dine, you can get a real taste of the 18th century here.
Now this is definitely a sign I don't think that's changed since the original restoration.
The tavern has a long history, and its sign has been an important part of the building's identity since its restoration, hanging outside for decades and spotted in various television shows and films.
But I like how it's got the, is that a ham?
looks like a ham. It illustrates very well what it's for. You can drink and eat and have a full
It's like
stomach.
you go in there for a hearty meal and a cold pint out of your beer stein.
The imagery reflects the tavern's offerings and the social atmosphere of the time.
So I'm not sure if that's James Shields in the imagery, but I know it's that the sign has not changed that much. If anything, maybe a little paint touch-up, but it definitely pops with the autumn leaves up there in the blue sky. And you know, as a licensed tavern in the city of Williamsburg, this sign would have definitely welcomed travelers and locals, invited them in for, what do you think, some good food and some cold beverages?
Good food.
Good food sounds good about right now.
The Millinery Shop, once operated by Margaret Hunter during the 18th century, sold women's clothing, ribbons, and other fashionable accessories, as well as men's items such as hats and neckwear.
And this is another really simple, straightforward sign. It doesn't really need any illustration to let you know what it's for. Everybody in Williamsburg would have understood what this meant, what was done there.
Yeah.
This small brick building along the Duke of Gloucester Street served locals and visitors seeking the latest styles in the colony.
You can definitely imagine people coming here, women coming inside to pick out their dresses and whatever other materials they needed to make things. This would have been a well-known spot because everyone in town seemed to know who Margaret Hunter was.
Its large windows still display the latest fashions that once filled the shop, highlighting the importance of style and social presentation in the colony. The restored sign above the door simply displays the shop owner's name and the word millinery, revealing only subtle changes in style and lettering over the years, while carefully preserving its old world feel.
And the sign has seen changes because it used to be cursive font that said Fine Millinery, and now it just says the owner's name, Margaret Hunter, as well as the trade millinery. So just a small change, but I think it's a pretty effective change, even though I'm probably a little more partial to the original.
I later discovered that in Williamsburg's 1957 classic film, The Story of a Patriot, the millinery is shown. And at that time, 2 portraits of women wearing bonnets hung on the exterior of the building, one on each side of the entrance. It was a nice touch that left me wondering why they were ever removed. The King's Arms Tavern was operated by tavern keeper and owner Jane Vobe in the 1770s. It attracted Williamsburg's elite and visitors from across the colonies and would have been constantly alive with energy and livelihood. The restored sign outside features a painted royal coat of arms on a subtle background, reflecting the tavern's royal namesake.
The royal coat of arms here at the King's Arms stands out on Duke of Gloucester. It really lets you know that this was a popular and important place.
Patrons often mingled here as news spread and debates unfolded across the colonies, creating an atmosphere that shaped the social life of the city. Over time, the tavern became a defining part of Williamsburg, reflecting the character and daily life in the colonial capital.
And since we've been inside before, it's easy to imagine like how formal and like how elegant things would have been in there when they had events or something going on.
Yeah, I'm sure there was celebrations and announcements, and I know it had some high society patrons like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and a lot of other founding fathers frequented the King's Arms, and that's recorded, as well as it's got a well-known owner, Jane Vogue. But I think that's probably a story for another day. And to look at this one, and this is another one that there's really old images online that you can look at, and it doesn't appear that this one's changed at all since the restoration, the original restoration. If anything, where other signs look like they've been touched up with paint, this one actually looks a little more worn than the originals that I've seen from earlier years. So I don't think they've done any updates to this sign.
Its design has stayed largely consistent through the years with minimal changes, ensuring it continues to resonate with those who see it today. Established during the time of the American Revolution, the William Pitt store stands as a testament to Williamsburg's rich mercantile history. Between 1775 and 78, merchant William Pitt sold clothing, hats, housewares, and other dry goods from his bustling shop at the corner of North Botetourt and Duke of Gloucester Street.
And this one here definitely catches your eye too. It uses that common colonial abbreviated first name and then the full last name with a clearly stated trade that it is, as he's a merchant. And it really is just like a classic colonial vibe to it.
Today, the building still reflects its colonial origins, and its hanging sign along the city's main avenue draws the eye, offering a glimpse of the store's history and a reminder of the brief period when Pitt once worked here. The shop sells historically inspired toys and items that may have been influenced by the goods he advertised in the Virginia Gazette during the Revolutionary years.
And I love the imagery on this one.
Yeah, that's a man holding a hoop and a stick, and a woman with some sort of doll, a nod to 18th century toys. And if you're ever in Williamsburg on a windy day and you see that sign blowing in the wind, it's a good reminder, if you use your imagination, of colonial Williamsburg in its prime, the hustle and bustle of the city, and the role the store played in everyday life. It's a really cool sign here at the William Pitt store.
Another old tavern on Duke of Gloucester Street, the Edinburgh Castle Tavern, holds an important place in colonial Williamsburg's history. In the 18th century, it was run by John Burdett as Burdett's Ordinary, a lively place where people could eat, drink, and catch up on the latest news. Today, the painted sign outside shows Edinburgh Castle set against an English landscape. The lettering is bold and dark, with Edinburgh abbreviated and Castle written in a traditional long S style, less familiar to modern readers.
And this one's a really nice view too, similar to Charlton's with the Capitol in the background.
Yeah, and against our blue skies, it looks so pretty. It's so unique. This is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
The current sign is a subtle update of an older design, which featured a more classic castle with 3 rounded towers with flags on top.
Yeah, in the early 2000s, the colors in a picture I saw were a little more faded, and it was actually a different castle. But I like how this one looks a little sharper and the colors pop a little bit more. But I do think I like the older one just a tick better. But I do like this one too, though.
This one's very vibrant.
Yeah, it fits Williamsburg, and it fits this tree that hangs right over top of it, gives it nice shade.
That older version spelled out the tavern's name in full, depicting Edinburgh Castle in Scotland and reinforcing its historic identity. The new sign keeps that historic feel while adding a touch of visual appeal for modern visitors.
And I wonder if the painted castle up there instantly told the story in the 18th century. Like a small detail that let people know that they made it to Edinburgh Castle.
Well, it gives you a sense of safety, like an old kingdom or protection, so maybe it was a safe place to stay.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it. I like that.
An interesting fact about the sign is that prior to Burdett's ownership, the previous owner listed it in his last will and testament as the sign of Edinburgh Castle with the irons, etc. When Burdett became the next owner, he most likely purchased items during the sale of the tavern, and he also included the sign in his own inventory of possessions. This connection to the previous owner's inventory was not realized until after Burdett's death.
All right, here's the sign, Sarah. What's it say here?
John Burdick kept a tavern here at the sign of Edinburgh Castle. His daughter, later Christiana Campbell, was also a well-known tavern keeper. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. So they were both tavern keepers.
Yeah.
There were so many taverns in Williamsburg then.
The Golden Ball was the shop of James Craig, an 18th century jeweler, engraver, watchmaker, and silversmith in Williamsburg. His shop attracted a wide range of patrons and showcased fine craftsmanship, offering gold and silver items such as rings, necklaces, earrings, and other pieces, making it a notable destination in the city. The restored sign features a painted golden ball attached to it, the iconic symbol that gives the shop its very name.
And I love how much the golden ball stands out on this sign, and there's so much detail when you get really close up to it.
I mean, if you look at that, you can definitely see the age in this sign, because I'm pretty sure this is the original from many decades ago. And if you just look at the border of the sign, look at that moss. It's like eaten into the framing of the sign.
It's
but
cracked.
But I think that kind of gives it a vintage colonial look too.
While the sign has seen some minor updates over the years, it still retains the historical essence that makes it exclusive.
But I love the golden ball, and I'm sure anybody walking down Duke of Gloucester back then knew exactly where to come when it came to silver or clock making or anything like that. This would have probably been the place to come, James Craig's little shop here, right? But it definitely is clear what James Craig did here as the watchmaker, clockmaker, an engraver, as well as a silversmith. So he was a busy man in Williamsburg, no doubt. Yeah, it's pretty amazing that this sign, after all these centuries, still links James Craig's handiwork to the modern day, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty cool thing. It's a good looking sign.
Sitting behind the prominent Capitol building at the east end of Duke of Gloucester Street, not quite on it, Christiana Campbell's Tavern stands as a testament to 18th century Williamsburg's lively social scene. Owned by Christiana Burdett Campbell, a pioneering female innkeeper, the tavern was well known for its wide array of seafood dishes and was often visited by elite figures such as George Washington, who often stayed here while in the city.
This is one of his favorite places to come, and he would eat seafood here all the time. So he was a regular patron of Christiana Campbell's. And he definitely knew what good eating was in Williamsburg, because this was one of his favorite spots.
The triangular-shaped sign sits atop a wooden post near the tavern's front walkway, and over the years, it has seen subtle changes.
Yeah, I love how the little roof makes the sign look more than just a tiny house. It almost looks like an outbuilding.
It's a very unique sign. There aren't any other signs like this.
Yeah, I like it.
Today, the sign design still features what appears to be a miniature version of the tavern itself, or perhaps a kitchen outbuilding with a clapboard pitched roof covered in wooden shingles.
And if you look at the sign with the tavern in the background, you can just imagine all the laughter that fills this spot now and the way it was back in the day. And it's really cool when you're passing by it at night and it's glowing, you know?
A historical image I found online shows it once bore the name Christiana Campbell's Coffee House, though the date of the photograph is uncertain.
Yeah, and even though it's not the original sign, it's still kind of cool to know that it's standing right where the original one would have once stood, you know?
The simplicity of the design gives it a refined look that blends smoothly into its historic setting. Built in 1770, the Brick House Tavern stands at the south side of the corner of Duke of Gloucester and Botetourt Streets in colonial Williamsburg. In the 18th century, it was a key stop for travelers coming from afar, offering warm meals, cold drinks, and comfortable lodging after long days riding in from other counties.
And there's something about this stretch of Duke of Gloucester the corner of the street here. And when you come across the Brick House Tavern signage, I don't know what it is. I just like this part of the road.
Yeah, and everything kind of ties together with this building, like it all matches, and they've got like the burgundy of tavern matches the bricks.
Yeah, everything's
of the
cohesive.
building.
And I mentioned it earlier, pictures really let people know what the shop was all about, what the trade was. Of course, the Brick House Tavern sign in the 21st century only has text. But if that were the case in the 18th century, I'm sure to those that could read, it was a definite welcoming sight, especially after a long day's travel.
Yeah, I never really thought about how people depended on the illustrations to know what a building was.
Yeah, not everyone could read, but for those that could, of course, if this were the case of the Brick House Tavern sign having text on it, they would have known what it was. And the location of it, it's clearly spotted right here off the main street.
Today, the restored building and its rustic sign retain their historic identity, signaling a step back in time and inviting visitors to imagine weary travelers gathering inside for a hearty meal, the smell of food and wood smoke drifting through the air outside, and the steady chatter rising from within this well-used colonial tavern.
And you know, standing here, if you stop and just use your imagination, you can almost hear a rider on horseback arriving after a long travel throughout the colony, trying to get the capital city of Virginia, and knowing that you're going to be staying at a tavern in town. When you spotted the Brick House Tavern, you knew you were at the right place, and it was probably going to be a good night.
And it really kind of transports you back to that time, because it feels really authentic to the time, saying good rooms for ladies and gentlemen, because nothing says that nowadays.
They had to let the people know.
The Barber and Peruke maker in colonial Williamsburg was an 18th century shop offering wig making, haircuts, and grooming services. It served both local residents and travelers, reflecting the social and professional importance of personal appearance in colonial society.
This is another sign that really actually indicates what it is based on the illustrations on there. You can really tell what it's for.
You would imagine, just like a lot of the other signs in town, that when they saw that, they knew they could come here and get their wigs done, their haircut. Probably a really popular place for the gentry of Williamsburg.
Its restored sign displays the shop's name and preserves the general design of its earlier years.
And it looks like this sign hasn't changed much at all, because in the Story of a Patriot, in the Perry Como Christmas special, and other things they've done in the city, that sign is shown, and by the looks of it, it doesn't have any major changes, except being a little worn and weathered. So even a single hanging sign like this one shows how important grooming and wigs would have been back then to the people of Williamsburg. And this shop right here definitely played a big role in that.
Yeah, the sign is simple but clear. The Barber and Peruke maker tells you exactly what they did.
Yep, sure does. Though there may be some small changes, I can't really tell. But either way, it fits in perfectly in Williamsburg.
The Bluebell Tavern was built by John Redwood in 1707 on prime land in the Capitol Square of 18th century Williamsburg.
Now this is definitely one that I feel like doesn't get enough attention being behind the Capitol building. We always pass by it and I never really think much about it because it's back here.
Originally opening as Redwood's Ordinary, it was later purchased by Philip Ludwell of Green Spring, who leased it to various tenants. During its tavern years, it was a popular spot for travelers and locals, serving food and drink and providing a gathering place in early Williamsburg. The tavern's sign features a painted bell, shaded to give it a three-dimensional look.
And I really like the bell here at the Bluebell Tavern on their sign, but to be honest, I'm not quite sure how this ties into tavern life back then.
It could have meant like time for your reservation or time for meals or like
Like what,
signifying they rang the bell.
Oh,
or
okay.
something, maybe.
That's true. It very well could.
The bell itself has a rounded top and a wider, flared bottom, resembling a town bell. It hangs in front of the tavern's front porchway against the sign's yellow background, which makes the bell further stand out.
But it looks like the sign, based on what I've seen on earlier pictures online, it doesn't look like the bell's changed that much. So I think the background's changed a bit, and some of the details on the bell itself have changed. Pretty much looks like the bell of old. So if your theory's right and that bell rang, I'm sure that was a pleasant sound to hear if you were hungry and you knew your meal was ready or your room was ready at the Blue Bell.
It was probably the best way to notify people back then.
And knowing the owners, Redwood and Ludwell, once ran this place, it kind of makes the bell feel like it's sort of a link to their world back then.
By 1771, the tavern had fallen into disrepair and was reconstructed at some point in the mid-20th century. The Apothecary in Colonial Williamsburg was run by Dr. William Pasteur and Dr. John Minson Galt in the late 18th century. The shop provided medicines and remedies for local residents, serving as an important part of daily life and well-being in the city. The restored sign outside features a mortar and pestle, traditional symbols of apothecaries then.
And you can almost picture Pasteur and Galt inside mixing up concoctions, especially during this time of year when it would have been cold outside and people were more prone to get sick.
So the mortar and pestle on this sign would really convey exactly what this was for, because that was pretty common back then, right?
Yeah, and there was more apothecaries in town too, so I guess when they saw that, they probably knew that it was a house of healing. And it doesn't appear that it's changed at all. I believe older pictures show the exact same sign, but they might have done, once again, like some touch-up work on the paint. But I'm pretty sure that's the original sign from the early days.
Its design has remained faithful to early restored versions, with modest updates to keep it clear and visually appealing for visitors today.
It really puts you back in the 18th century and what people would have thought walking down the Duke of Gloucester. They saw that, knew that they could drop in and receive a remedy for their ailment.
John Holt first purchased this property along Duke of Gloucester Street in the 1740s, paying the impressive sum of £232 for what would become the site of his thriving Williamsburg store. Today, its hanging sign outside marks the site, although its symbolism remains a bit of a mystery to us.
In this store right here, I'm not exactly sure what this sign represents. I don't know if that's some sort of weight or a bottle. What do you think that is?
It kind of looks like a large bottle, but it sounds like it served as a bunch of different things, so maybe it's just some kind of ornament.
The design makes you stop and wonder. Its shape's unclear to us today, but likely obvious to people in the 1700s, and probably some sort of representation of the goods and merchandise sold here.
And at some point, John Holt's brother William ran a general store from here in the 18th century. So that's about all I know, and that's based on the name tag on the front of it.
Yeah, the sign also said that there was a well-known milliner, Mary Dickinson, who worked out of here later after it was a general store, and another merchant. So it might just be kind of an artistic representation to cover everything.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of a mystery what it is, but it's still a common sight to see that's really neat to see when you're walking down the street here.
Situated in one of the busiest parts of the city, right in Market Square at the heart of Williamsburg, the Market Square Tavern was first established as a store in the mid-18th century before becoming the public house we know today. After nearly a decade, a new owner arrived in September of 1771, transforming the location into yet another thriving business in town.
And the artwork on this one is definitely very clean, and I really like it. With the horse being the centerpiece and the elegant text, it really grabs people's attention walking down Duke of Gloucester.
Yeah, and the horse really kind of lets you know, notifies anybody traveling through or passing by that this is a place that they could stay.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And with a horse being the most common way of travel back in the day, from people coming from other colonies into the city of Williamsburg, it definitely would have let them know that it was a popular lodging location.
The tavern sign offers a good example of what colonial-era signage may have looked like. Featuring a simple painted wooden board with the tavern's name and a brief description of its purpose.
Because like the sign says, it's lodging in the finest manner.
This straightforward design would have made it easily recognizable to visitors and shoppers in the neighboring marketplace back then.
And it's kind of strange to think about Thomas Jefferson would have spotted the 18th century version of this sign when he stayed here during his time at William and Mary. So at that point, who knows what the sign exactly looked like, but Thomas Jefferson walked the very grounds where that sign stands today. It's a pretty mesmerizing thought.
It's such a cool thing to think about.
Yeah, right here, Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, and the height of this sign, along with the positioning of it on the road, really kind of guides people, anybody that would have been coming past.
Today, the tavern's modern signpost continues to stand proudly, serving as a reminder of Williamsburg's fascinating earlier years. The old printing and post office shop in colonial Williamsburg recreates the workspace of early colonial printers and postal workers. In the 18th century, the shop printed newspapers, pamphlets, and official documents that played a key role in spreading news and information throughout the colony. The recreated sign has evolved significantly over the years. Its original design has been altered to reflect the building's changing uses and the history it represents.
The older sign that used to hang here was one of my favorite signs on Duke of Gloucester, but this one's changed. It's now got the bugle on a green background, and it says, it lets you know it's the post office and the printing office.
Yeah, this one definitely looks newer than a lot of the ones that we've seen, and the bugle just kind of makes sense considering they would have been creating newspapers here and news.
Getting the word out. Yeah, so the old sign had an actual 18th century printing press on it, I believe over a white background, and I really just like that. It fit colonial Williamsburg from the old days. I hate to see that it's gone, but I do like the new one, just not as much as the older one.
The book bindery, also tied to the printing work here, was where printed sheets were carefully bound into finished volumes. Visitors can glimpse some of these creations through the shop's front windows. The tall hanging sign, still passed under by visitors walking by the colonial trades complex still found here today, clearly points to the building's rich history, honoring its role in both printing and postal work. And even more trade work takes place in the rear yard, impressing visitors from across the globe for many decades. The Red Lion on Duke of Gloucester Street served as a tavern and inn, and was operated by various tavern keepers and other tradesmen throughout the 18th century. During its tavern years, it would have been a familiar stop for travelers in Williamsburg, a place to enjoy a meal, sip a drink, and retire to rooms kept inside, while locals might drop in to catch up on the latest news from across the colony.
Hey, and this sign right here is one that always grabs my eye. The Red Lion on Duke of Gloucester, which was a tavern and a lodging house. So I'm sure this was a very popular spot if you were traveling to Williamsburg in the 18th century.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites too, and I imagine if it looks similar now to the way it did back then, travelers or people would have stood out to them.
And taverns were so important in the city. One that has a little different of a look from the normal tavern, such as the Red Lion, would have probably helped this one differentiate itself from others. And out of all the inns and taverns in the city, the Red Lion would have just been a really cool stop. I mean, the name alone makes you want to stop in for a visit.
If it showcased a Red Lion on its exterior sign back then, it would have made the tavern impossible to miss, standing out among the other inns and taverns competing for attention along the busy street here.
But it definitely, if you use your imagination and imagine people stopping in, it would have been an excellent place in Williamsburg to spend an overnight.
Yeah, it sounds very prestigious, and I've always loved the way that this tree is kind of shaped over the road, over the sidewalk, and there's a background to
that tree
sign.
is one of my favorite things about this tavern. And it's really a good place to take a picture at in the city.
Yeah, we've taken many pictures here.
Tarpley, Thompson and Company was a respected merchant establishment in early-day Williamsburg. Established around 1759 by James Tarpley, the store offered a diverse range of imported merchandise, including textiles, hats, jewelry, cutlery, and fine china. By 1773, the store was listed for sale and described as a commodious and well-situated shop on Williamsburg's Main Street.
And this one's another obvious, straight to the point sign, tells you what it is.
Its restored facade signage simply displays the name Tarpley, Thompson and Company in colonial style lettering above the entrance.
Is there record of it always being this way?
I don't recall reading about anything that said that the sign was like that, but it definitely could have very well been. If he was a popular merchant in town, there's no doubt he might have slapped his name on the side of the building.
This straightforward design reflects the business's colonial era aesthetic, emphasizing clarity and professionalism.
And even after so many years of coming here and being here, this still maintains that colonial feel.
Yeah, it does, but one thing I am kind of missing is it used to have cargo boxes out front, and I love that because it just kind of referenced, a big shipment just came in from London. So I hate to see they're not there, but it's still definitely a building that looks like it fits well into 18th century Williamsburg. Tarpley, Thompson and Company at the corner of Botetourt and Duke of Gloucester.
The story of a patriot, now very much a time capsule of colonial Williamsburg's yesteryears, reveals that the shop's sign once looked quite different in 1957, when the store was portrayed at the site where the William Pitt store now stands.
The citizens have their own way of forcing compliance.
And the people that passed right underneath his name would have came in this store and been here to check out all the latest imports from London, or to potentially make an order from London. So this is where it would have happened.
The Raleigh Tavern, established around 1717, was one of Williamsburg's most important 18th century taverns. Influential residents and visiting officials filled its rooms, and vibrant gatherings sometimes turned to discussions of politics on several occasions, as noted in historical records.
Yeah, anytime we're here and I see the Raleigh Tavern, especially the sign hanging up front, you can't help but think about all the history that took place inside the building.
The restored sign features a portrait of Sir Walter Raleigh and has seen changes in style over the years, while preserving its historical reference.
Sir Walter Raleigh, he definitely looks like he's an authority figure looming over Duke of Gloucester.
Over time, the tavern became a landmark in Williamsburg, remembered for pivotal events that took place within its walls, and for the distinctive character it brought to the city's social life.
After the royal governors would dissolve the House of Burgesses, they would come here and meet up and continue government in a secret meeting. The Apollo room and all the other rooms that Washington and all the founding fathers were inside. So really cool when you see that sign and you imagine how many people, how many founding fathers passed under his bust statue hanging over the entranceway.
Has this sign ever changed?
You know, actually, when we first really started coming here about 15 years ago, we roamed the streets of Williamsburg when the old sign was here. So yeah, it has changed. I think it was around 2015 when it changed. I'm not exactly sure the year, but it has changed. Yeah, I believe the older one was more like ornate, had like some type of a ribbon or banner framing, and it was still a portrait of Sir Walter Raleigh. But I think I like the older one a little better. This one seems a little more simple, but it's still effective. I think I kind of like the older one better from what I recall. Kind of looks a little more colonial, the last
Weathered.
one.
Tailor Severinus Durfee operated one of many tailor shops in Williamsburg during the 1770s. His shop would have attracted customers from all walks of life, anyone seeking quality garments and materials. Hanging outside the reconstructed shop is the Golden Fleece, a horned ram, which is a male sheep, symbolizing the tailoring trade in colonial America.
All right, so the sign here at Severinus Durfee's tailor shop in the modern day appears to be a sheep hanging up there off the wooden post. But in the earlier days, I did see it was a much more simple approach, and it had his name just sheared right across the front of the building.
Yeah, and it makes sense that if he was a tailor that it would be a sheep up there, since that's what they would have gotten the materials in order to make clothing or anything else like that.
The animal represents the source of fine wool, the essential material for 18th century garments.
Yeah, and I've read online that he not only sold clothing, he sold dry goods like ribbons and fabrics and sewing supplies.
Yeah, and this kind of sign would definitely bring people that wanted quality fabrics or anything like that. They would know by the sign.
Yeah.
The current modern day sign is crafted from metal and would have been both durable and conspicuous centuries ago, easily catching the eye of townspeople walking along Duke of Gloucester Street and marking the shop as a place where skilled tailors transformed wool into clothing.
And there were other tailors in town, I'm sure, but with this one being at the west end of Duke of Gloucester, I'm sure it was a popular place to have a tailor shop.
And this building fits in so perfectly to Colonial Williamsburg. I love this building so much. And even there appears to be another little red door up at the top above the front door.
Yeah, I love that door. And together, the sign and the building itself really fits into the colonial streetscape here and would have guided visitors of the 18th century straight to the doorway of his little shop here. And I'm sure it was a well-stocked place where they could find just about anything they needed.
Weatherburn's Tavern, established in the 18th century, was another popular gathering place in Williamsburg and once hosted the welcoming banquet for Royal Governor Robert Dinwiddie. A public place for food, drink, and lodging, the tavern attracted both members of the upper class, including city leaders and notable guests, as well as other residents of the colony, reflecting its reputation as a lively and well-regarded business in colonial society.
And to look at this, I don't even think this sign has changed at all over the years. I've seen older images, and like a lot of the ones down Duke of Gloucester, I think this is the original sign. It may have had some touch-up paintwork to kind of refresh the colors, but overall, I think this is the original sign.
It looks a little weathered at the top.
Yeah, oh, it's definitely weathered. No pun intended. But I do believe we're looking at the original restored sign from the 1960s.
The design has remained largely unchanged over the years, preserving the tavern's early American appeal. The tavern's restored sign features a green bottle and a glass set, with a checkered black and white border with the name Weatherburn displayed in white letters on a dark background.
The checkerboard border in the bottle and glass on this Weatherburn sign just looks like this tavern has history.
Yeah, it's one that's always stood out to me compared to all the other ones. And I read that a lot of upper class people would come here and travelers would come through here and they would like wouldn't they share news with each other a lot?
Oh yeah, Washington, Jefferson, and other founding fathers were probably swapping news from the Virginia Gazette, grumbling about England's taxes and how they affected their lands, and just about the early stirrings of the brewing revolution. Yeah, so when you're looking at this sign, looking at the front of Weatherburn's, you can almost hear the chatter and the clanging of glasses and people in there having a good time back in the 18th century. I've always liked Weatherburn's, and I can't wait till one day it hopefully opens back up so we can go inside and see what it looks like in there.
The John Greenhow store is a reconstruction of an 18th century general store, representing the successful mercantile business of John Greenhow, another well-known merchant in colonial Virginia. Historically, the store served as a place where colonists could purchase both imported and locally made goods. Today, it houses a shop selling period reproductions, colonial Williamsburg merchandise, and other historically inspired items. The store's hanging sign remains a key feature, a wooden board projecting over the entrance for maximum visibility, easily seen by anyone walking along the south side of the Duke of Gloucester Street.
Yeah, the sailing ship on the Greenhow store just looks great, and it's very detailed. And it really would have let 18th century visitors know that if they walked inside this shop, they were getting imported goods from across the ocean.
Yeah, this is another really close favorite just because of the detail and what it means and what it says about the store. And it always has like this certain very significant smell whenever you pass by, like soap. I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, it does smell good, and I'll have to agree with you. This is definitely in the top 5 of my favorite signs in Williamsburg. Yeah, and the ship definitely stands out loud and clear, linking this store to the transatlantic trade. It really does symbolize how this street was tied to ports all across the Atlantic. So a really neat sight to see, a massive ship on the sign.
So what kinds of things would they have sold here in the 18th century?
I'm pretty sure it's similar to what's sold inside today. Things like porcelain and clothing, probably candles and soap. I think that's why we're getting that good fragrance outside the shop today. It's one of the best smelling stores on the Duke of Gloucester.
Chowning's Tavern, opened by Josiah Chowning in 1766, was once a busy stop for people in the city. Though maybe not as popular as other prestigious taverns in town, it would have been a well-known tavern during its short time in operation here. While we don't know exactly what the original hanging sign looked like, it more than likely featured an eye-catching image, perhaps something representing tavern life to make it easily visible on a street full of businesses.
This sign right here leaves no question to the imagination. It clearly shows who I believe is Josiah Chowning uncorking a wine bottle with his red jacket and blue hat on.
Yeah, there's absolutely no guessing what is going on at this place.
Yeah, it's no doubt a tavern. And if you look at his face, it's almost like he's being a little mischievous there. As he uncorks the bottle, he's up to something.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites because it shows like so much personality. You can see the actual expression in his face. It actually has a person's face on it.
It's almost like he's gonna pour a glass of wine and maybe have a secret session of gossip inside the tavern. And the way he pulls that cork, it's almost like frozen in time, a little snapshot in history. And it is actually for us, because what do we like to do every time we come here?
Have a root beer.
Have a Chowning's root beer. And as you can see, I'm actually sporting my Chowning's Tavern root beer shirt. So definitely a big fan of Chowning's Tavern. And Sarah and I both love the root beer here. If you've never had it, you should try it.
Today, and since the early days of its restoration, fixed to the wall outside of the tavern, a silver pitcher or a metal tankard, tilting as if pouring ale, wine, or perhaps maybe even the tavern's signature root beer we love so much, can still be seen, clearly linking it to the tavern's purpose in the 18th century. As we left the brick paths of Duke of Gloucester Street, I took a quick moment to look back and ponder. Each of these fascinating signs, the ship, the bugle, the mortar and pestle, every sign in its once original form were once the true voices of the tradespeople of Williamsburg. They remind us that humankind, then and now, will always find a way to communicate and stand out to allow their businesses to thrive. Some became weathered and worn while withstanding the tests of time, but their modern renditions stand proud today as unforgettable portraits of the people who shaped America long ago.